Hi everybody. So we're going to start writing code in Unity. Imagine that. Code in a coding class. So you've learned the basics of Unity on how to make pieces and sort of do the art part. And as far as I'm concerned, you can go as crazy with that as you want. Um, that's why I wanted you to be exposed to it with animations or whatever. Um, but now we're going to figure out how do we integrate code to make your characters more powerful, even better. And I'm going to use this opportunity to switch to a new project. So we've had one project called First the whole time so far. And now what we're going to do is switch over and have a second project called Second. So I'm going to do that step here, and I encourage you to do the same. It means we're going to have to move some assets and stuff. So I'm going to click New, and you should do the same thing. And then here, we're going to call this Second, and we're going to put it on our desktop. Actually, it was already there. Okay, good. And it's going to be 2D, and we're going to click Create Project. And so now maybe you can appreciate why this step takes some time, because all that stuff that you did with gravity and colliders and all that, is all somebody else's code. They put the resources in there so you can do this stuff, and we want to use it. And so that's big. Yeah, so let me get this inside the window. There we go. Cool. All right. So the first thing I want to do is, let's see, what do I want to do? In order to write code, you've got to have a game object. Okay, so code itself is an asset. So I am going to open up Second, and this is review. This should be easy. My assets folder is obviously empty, because I'm starting a new project. And what I'm going to do is, in one of my groups we made Shrek, so I am going to grab the Shrek. I was in charge of making the head, so I just did, and there it is. So I'm going to use that as my object. And for the purposes of the introductory code steps, the game object actually doesn't do anything. Like, we're not gonna, it doesn't have really a function other than it allows us to put our components into it. So I'm gonna drag my Shrek head onto the screen, onto the stage, and this should all feel comfortable now. This is the transform of my Shrek head. And I can do things like make it small, make it, whoops, and by adjusting the transform, I can rotate it. You have to select it first. If I were to rotate it a little bit without Z, I do that, etc. So there's our Shrek head. And what I'm going to do now is go down to this component area, and I'm going to say add component. And this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and the code is called a script. And so we're going to say new script, and I have two, the languages you have to choose from, actually it's just C#. So I don't want you to get anxious, but this is yet another language, but it's an awful lot like Java. For our purposes, it's effectively Java. So we'll blow the dust off our cobwebs out of our memory and get Java going again. And this blue thing is the name of the code. So I'm going to call it first code. And then you click create and add, and something magical is going to happen. Another asset shows up, and as promised, code is an asset. So you can see it in the transform. I've got Shrek selected. So this is the inspector for Shrek. This is Shrek's transform, but you can see here there's also another box here that says script, which means code, and I called it first code, which is why it says that there. And then it appears over here in our asset folder, and it'll also be, and again this is review, if we open up second, we go into assets, we're going to see that there, and you can see that the C# extension, like Java was .java, C# is .cs, FYI. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is write some simple code, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to double click on first code, and oh great, it's opening Visual Studio, which I didn't want. And a bunch of you, there's two versions of the compiler. One's called Visual Studio, and another one's called Mono Develop, and they both work, and they're about the same. Okay, so I'm hoping that group leaders can navigate the difference, and maybe the next time I do a video, I'll see if I can wire it for mono behavior, the mono behavior, the other compiler. But here you see this is made for you, and the first thing I want to talk about is that there's a couple methods, and this is I'm going to relate it back to where we started in Java. But you can see first code here. That's the name of the class, or sorry, the name of the file up here. That's what I typed in, and it's also here too, which means it's the name of the class. And that was true in Java. We had a file called starter, and it was called starter.java, and if you looked inside of it, it would say starter right here. Same deal. And then there's two methods. One of them is called start, and this method executes every time you hit the play button. So when your movie starts and you hit that play button, whatever's between this bracket and this bracket is going to happen one time. And so I'm going to demonstrate that, and I'm going to put up my first command. So I'm going to say print, and I'm going to make a string. I'm going to put a message out to the screen, and I'm not an expert in Visual Studio, so we will see what happens here. I think I want to build, or I think I press F8. Let's try that. I'm pressing F8. I think that's compile. Oops. All right. It's telling me. Notice there was it just told me I needed a semicolon. So yay, there's my semicolon. And apparently it's not F8, and it's not F5. Oh, F5. Surprise, surprise. So it's compiling, and where's my output? I don't know. Okay, I think I just compiled it. So I'm going to minimize that. And now what I'm going to do is go back to my Unity movie. And remember what I did is I put first code inside of Shrek. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my movie. And remember, all I did was write I love to surf. So at this part down here, we're going to switch over. We're going to press console, and I've got all kinds of errors, which is very interesting. And I want to get rid of those. So I just press the clear button. And now what I'm going to do is hit play and see if my program works. And oops. All right, so there's a bunch of scary errors, I guess. But if you look at the bottom, it says, I love to surf, exclamation mark. So that's the output that I am worried about. And notice it only happens once. Okay, so I just wrote my first program. There's something here that's not happy, but I'm not going to worry about it because I did see what I want to see, which is this. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop. So if you think back to what we learned in Java, when I press F5 over here, and I think I can do it here too. Build solution. I think this does it. Build solution. Boom. Do I want to stop debugging? Sure. So now it's building, which is like compiling. All right, so it's thinking, or maybe it's done thinking. And there's the phone. Pause. All right, I'm back. I forget what I was doing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to induce an error. So I'm going to take this semicolon away. And then I am going to go press that build button again. And build solution. See if it tells me. Yeah, okay, so down here it tells us. Look at that. Semicolon expected in project second, first code, line 9. Boom. Got a little tilde there. Thank you, my friend. That was nice of you. All right, so then I go build again. I fixed it. And I'm not sure where the output is. Let's see. I succeeded. That's exciting. There's an output window. Maybe I'll click that. I'm not sure where I see I love to surf. Maybe I don't get to see it. Maybe there's a run button. Is there a run? Run code analysis. Run code analysis. Maybe that. I think that's just the compile step. And so then I go over to my Unity. And I'm going to hit this clear, but remember, don't forget to hit the console. Because this is like the black window in Java where we would system.out print to. So that's where our output's going to be. And I'm going to hit the play button. And I got a bunch of ugly stuff. But at the bottom it says, I love to surf. And this only happens one time because we wrote the code inside of start. And start only happens once, and there's a comment here telling you that. It's used for initialization. So, update, in contrast, happens over and over. So this is like a while loop. This is like while true. Okay, in fact, I'll write that there. This is like a while true. So don't ever put a while true in here because it'll crash your machine. So this is going to, as long as your movie's running, you're going to see whatever is between this bracket and this bracket over and over. So I'm going to write print, no, let's see, let's make an integer. So that stuff all works. So I'm going to say int counter equals 589, just a random number. And then inside here I'm going to say counter, and I'm going to put a semicolon here. Boom, oops, boom, boom. All right, so I'm going to go hit build again, and I think I'm happy because this thing said build 1 succeeded. Yay. All right, so now I'm going to go over to Unity. So that's like compile, and this is like run. And I'm going to hit that clear button because all those errors make me nervous. And then I'm going to hit play, and this should run the code. And recall that it's associated with Shrek, but I'm not doing anything with Shrek. Shrek's just sitting there. Shrek just gave me a game object that I could stick code on. And so this thing is running, and it's spitting out 589s, which is a nice number. And you can see that this counter here is probably counting how many times I spit out 589s, over 1,000, and these keep updating. So it's running forever. As long as the movie's running, update is running, which means 589 is printing out to the screen over and over. If I hit if I stop playing, then this stops, and I see the last 589 come out. So that's the basics of code, and you can see in the slides the lab that you're going to do first, which is bringing back, it's intended to get you to be familiar with the compile and run in Unity, and it's also intended to remind you about what you learned in Java.